So I basically forgot even the idea of having a mother. Not just my specific mother, I forgot completely that there is such a thing as mothers and that I had one. Basically, it was just like completely erased from my awareness.
Today's video is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. If you've ever been seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions. Morgan & Morgan doesn't settle for lowball offers. They've achieved some of the largest verdicts in recent months, like $26 million in Florida and $12 million in Philadelphia, far exceeding insurance offers. Their fee is absolutely free unless you win. Morgan & Morgan is committed to fighting for you if you become their client. If you've been in an accident, you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. You can check out www.forthepeople.com/theotherside to submit a claim today. Morgan & Morgan will fight the compensation you deserve if you become their client. And remember, fighting big companies requires a big law firm. Morgan & Morgan is ready to take on insurance companies of any size. You can check out Morgan & Morgan today at www.forthepeople.com/theotherside or click the link in the description below. Don't wait. Take the first step toward protecting your rights.
My name is Irada, and I am from Turkey, Istanbul, and I'm here today to share my near-death experience. It happened 12 years ago, and it all began in a hospital. Basically, I was there for some minor surgery, which was supposed to take just an hour, but everything went wrong right from the beginning, so my doctor was not there. I had to wait for a few hours. I was kept being notified to wait a little bit more, so it was already pretty late in the evening, and I received a call asking me if I agree if another doctor helps me, because my doctor is unable to come. I agreed. These doctors, they have just finished their shift and they were just about to leave, and suddenly they got a call that they have this one more patient. Quickly they took me in, and we're preparing for the surgery, and everyone is in a rush because their shift is already over and they want to go home basically, so no one is asking me too many questions. And by the way, at that time I was blonde, so no one asked me about my relationship with drugs and anesthesia, so they give me the anesthetic drug right away and they wait for the effect to show itself, so they talk to me but it's not affecting me at all. So the doctor decides that the reason is that they calculated the dosage wrong, so they should increase the dosage because I'm pretty tall and at that time I had a lot of muscle mass on my body, and they decided that they should double the dosage, which they do. The nurse injects the second dose and it's over for me. At that moment I'm gone. For me at this point, what I remember is that right before I lost the perception of the hospital room, I experienced few very weird sensations. Like the first sensation was I felt my whole body get really heavy, like a rock, and I was very surprised. Why am I not falling through the bed, through the floors? Because I felt that's how heavy I felt. I was like supposed to push through all these surfaces, and that sensation of heaviness then was replaced by a sensation of dryness, like complete dryness. Like I felt like my whole body suddenly dried out, like all liquid was gone, not just from my mouth, but all water, all liquid is gone from the whole body, and that was very shocking feeling. And third one was freezing cold. I felt the whole body shivering, like all the warmth, all the fire element was gone, and it all went so fast, like heavy, dry, cold. And then the last element to leave my body, I guess, was the element of air, where I tried to breathe in, just take this one breath, and there was no air to breathe. There was no oxygen. I couldn't take that breath, and at that point I felt I have no more power to keep perceiving this reality. That's how I felt. Like this whole reality that I was seeing, this hospital room, these doctors running, doing something in my body, it all just suddenly just dissolved, like fell apart. I did not feel myself moving anywhere. Like I did not fly out of the body, I did not travel. I felt that I'm still in that same spot, at that same place, I'm still there, but everything around me disappeared. And instead of this hospital room, now I was perceiving void, just black darkness, like empty darkness. And this field of, like, hard to describe because it felt like so endless, and black is the color that I put to it, but there was no surface. There was like nothingness, emptiness. And that was very weird, a very unusual feeling. And in this void, I saw one light in the distance. And it felt like in this black cosmic space, you see one little star. And that little star, it grabbed my attention because there was like basically nothing else to look at. I felt myself staring at that one light. And I knew at that point that light is trying to get my attention, and that light is asking for my attention. It's like pulling my attention. But I knew that if I focus on it, if I give in to that calling, it will suck me in. I had that knowing that it wants me to come to it, towards it, like to fly towards the light. It's gonna turn into a tunnel and it's gonna suck me in. I felt like I'm not gonna go because this attitude of not willing to do something that something else wants me to do, it's just something about me. I had this attitude all throughout my life. That's why I did not go towards that light. My reaction was to just stay where I'm at. If that light wants us to interact, it has to come closer. That feeling I had, that's why I did not move. I kept standing in that spot, in this void, perceiving that light, but not moving towards it. And still seeing it, I noticed that as I focus my attention on it, I'm kind of pulling it out of the darkness. It's like starts coming out of the darkness towards me. It's moving towards me. And as it gets closer, I realize that this piece of light, this particle of light, is actually a concept. And when it gets very close, I realize it's a concept of my mother. And then once I perceive this concept of my mother, I notice that there are few more stars like it just next to it. And I focus my attention on the next one. As I focus on it, I'm kind of like pulling it out of that darkness towards myself. When it gets close enough, I realize that that's a concept of my brother. And I do the same thing with the third light, and that's the concept of a telephone. And I do the same thing with the next one, that's a concept of a car. And I realized at that point, these concepts are a parts of a thought, the last thought that I had right before I got switched off in the hospital. I remember myself looking at the wall and thinking that it's already so late at night and my mother doesn't even know where I'm at. I should have called my brother so that he could pick me up by car because the road is long. So these concepts of mother, brother, telephone, car, and road are like my last thought. But when I was in hospital room thinking it, I was not aware that this thought consists of these specific concepts. And here it was all kind of like slowed down, and I was here thinking that one by one, concept by concept, moving from one piece of light to another one, I was thinking a thought. And I noticed myself, once I was done with 6 of them, I would come back to the first one again. And I was doing it in a loop. It's a circle. I'm just going in a loop, thinking this one thought over and over. I did it like for a few times. And then I felt that kind of like my powers are leaving me. I felt like I don't have any more energy to keep thinking this complicated thought. That's how it felt to me. And at one of these circles, I realized that I lost an element. I lost something there. I lost like one of those lights. Like I didn't have enough power to keep holding them all together. So one of them just drifted away into the darkness and I was not able to pull it out. And that was the first concept to disappear, was the concept of my mother. I felt like I've lost something, some concept there I forgot, but I did not remember what it was. So I basically forgot even the idea of having a mother, not just my specific mother. I forgot completely that there is such a thing as mothers and that I had one. Basically, it was just like completely erased from my awareness. Then the next thing I forgot was having a brother. That was the second concept to lose. So I kept trying to think that one thought over and over, but it was already like there was like phone, car, road, and I kept trying to focus on it. Like I put all my energy into thinking that thought. But after a while I felt like I kind of lost point. Why am I even doing it? It doesn't make any sense. And I just kind of let the third one go and the next one go, and I felt no more point to keep doing that. And once I let all the concepts go, dissipate into that darkness, into that void, the last one that I was left with is the concept of me, this idea that I am. And I already had no awareness or understanding of what I am, like where am I, which planet I am from, not just my identity as this person, but generally I had no idea of life on Earth or anything, just basically no concepts. But one last calming thought was that no problem. I don't know where I'm at. What is this place? I have no idea who am I, but I still exist. If I'm still thinking, it means I exist. I have no idea why I exist and where, but I exist. So I kept thinking that one thought, I am, for a while. And then I came to a conclusion that this place is located somewhere, because if I'm able to perceive something, I'm perceiving it in this kind of, like, I don't know how many degrees vision. So I felt like if I'm perceiving something in front of me, that means there's probably something behind me. It means there is this spot from which I'm looking. So that's me. I am somewhere. I am something. And the moment I had that one thought, it just snapped and I had 360 degrees vision right away. And that was probably the most terrifying part of this whole experience, because the moment I realized that I'm not anywhere. So that second, I felt this primal fear of realization that I do not exist. That's probably the most terrifying thing that I've ever experienced, ever. And there is no words which can describe that level of terror and that level of fear at that moment. And I realized that what I experienced at that time is what is described in many different books as hell, because there is no physical body to say, like, what did it feel like? Did it feel like pain? Did it feel like there was no body to feel pain? But that terror that my consciousness was feeling, experiencing, if I would have to translate it into physical terms, I would say that I felt like I am being torn into pieces, like my physical body is being like torn alive into pieces and cut and burned endlessly, non-stop, forever. That's how painful it was. There's no words to describe that experience, because there's no concepts there to describe that terror. So when we translate it into our concepts and our words, the closest available description is like the way they describe hell: being burned, fried, or cut and tortured forever. That's how it felt, and it felt forever. And that terror of my awareness of my own non-existence was at the same time my desire to exist. If I would have a voice or ability to scream there, I would just scream like an animal there from that terror, and that would be my desire to exist. I want to exist. And the moment when I kind of like expressed that desire to exist, I realized that this whole field of darkness is actually not empty. I realized that it's not empty, and I'm part of it. I'm part of this darkness. But it is not empty. It is just very, very dense. It's just like very, very compressed field. And I realized that everything that surrounds me is information. And I'm part of this. This blackness, this darkness, this void is information. It's infinite. There is no end in any direction. And there is no limits to me where I'm located within this field. I'm everywhere. So I have access to all information at the same time. And that feels like so much. That feels like too much. And I felt like so much pressure, so much tension, so much, like such huge density. That's what I was experiencing as pain. But when I realized that, like when I expressed that desire too, I got awareness that I'm part of this mass of information. I am. But in order to exist the way I was wishing to exist, I realized I need to think. But thinking in this field of this vast, dark, dense information, it's so hard to think there. Because to think, I have to find, like, out of all this huge amount of information that is around me, I have to pick one, like a point, and I have to focus on it. That's what I knew I need to do. If I focus on it, I start thinking it. And that transition was hard for me to make, because imagine you're in a vast ocean of information. How do you pick what to focus on? And there is just too much, so much, and it's painful. But to release, get rid of that pain, you need to choose one point, focus on it, and start thinking it. So that was a choice. That was a choice. It was, I'm telling it like it takes such a long time to describe, but actually it all happened maybe like all in a split second. That decision, the thought that I was thinking was that I just want to be something. And the moment I decided that, something snapped and I see myself back in the room. I see myself back in the hospital room, but I am floating, kind of like I see this whole place from above the ceiling. And at the same time, I still have the awareness of that whole black field, of that old void. I still have awareness of it, but I'm perceiving this room now. At the same time, I have awareness of this whole hospital, of all the corridor in other rooms. I know what's happening there, but my attention is focused on this specific room and these people. I see my body on the table and it looks disgusting to me. It does not look attractive and I don't feel excited to get into that body again. I know it belongs to me. I know like we're related. It's mine, but I feel like no way, I don't want to go into that. That's how I felt. I see the doctor trying to do something to my face up there, and then I see a nurse and one more doctor. That one is male and these two are females, and they're arguing. The doctor is yelling at the nurse, shouting and saying that she will not sign the papers for my death because it was not even her shift, and why did I even agree? She's like yelling, angry, screaming, shouting, and she's cursing at me for dying. And the nurse is standing with this journal and she's supposed to mark the time of the death, I guess, and somebody has to sign it. And the nurse is just like listening, standing there all freaked out, and the doctor is yelling at her, telling her to sign it. And basically they're deciding who is going to be responsible for my death. And that doctor who is yelling, she's cursing, like using all the worst language towards me for dying. And from above the ceiling, I hear that and I feel this desire to tell her to stop cursing, because she probably doesn't realize that I understand their language. And I want to tell her, stop cursing, I understand your language, I know what you're saying. And I'm trying to tell her that, and I feel so surprised that she's not hearing me. She's still yelling. And I try to send the message. I'm talking to her, but nothing is happening. So for those who are trying to connect with their spiritual guides or deceased relatives, just so you know, even when they're really trying to communicate with you, if you're not really listening, it's your task to really open up and relax and listen. Because like I was talking, I was like sending the message, no one was listening. And this my desire to express something to them is what pulled me back into my body right away. Like with that desire to express, I feel myself back in the physical body, and I look through, like already through my eyes, and I see this doctor standing above me and yelling at me, and he noticed probably some life in my eyes, and he started yelling, what's your name? And I know the answer. I feel like I know everything. At that point, I feel like I have this connection to this whole field of information. I know everything about everyone, like before and after. Like ask me anything. I feel like I know everything, and he's asking me my name. Of course I know what he wants to hear. He wants to hear Irada. And I try to tell him, and I figure out that I don't remember how to communicate through this body. So I try to send this message to him, like telepathically. My eyes, I'm telling, he's not receiving. So I try to send that signal through my face, through my belly, through my chest. I'm sending, it's not going. And after a few attempts, he's still yelling. So after a few attempts, I stumble upon my mouth. The sound comes out, and I feel like, oh, I found it. I found how this body talks. And in my perception, I actually answered clearly, Irada, I said. But what came out of my mouth, it was like some animal roar or something. It was nothing like human speech at all. But to me, it felt like I said it. And it took me a while to tune my hearing and speaking, to tune them. At first, it felt like I'm saying, even though I didn't. I had to try several times until my ear and my mouth tuned, and I was hearing outside the same thing that I was hearing in my head. It took a while. So after they realized that I'm back, they're still proceeding with their whatever they're doing. And I look at the wall in front of me, and I'm still under the effect of that terror that I just experienced. And I look at that wall, and I have only one thought. I say, God, okay, I haven't died this time, but I will have to die eventually. Is there anything I can do so that my next death is not like that? And once I expressed that thought, when I expressed it, right away I received this from that wall, like a wave of light, like wave of warmth coming from that wall and kind of like embracing me, covering me with that warmth. And this wave of light came with one word, love. And with that word love, I felt so calm and peaceful and embraced, as if like, okay, now I know, now I'm safe. I felt like that word It had like everything in it. It was more than just a word. It basically calmed me down and it gave me that peace, like, okay, there is hope, there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I will figure it out. So basically, it's been 12 years and it took me quite a number of years to figure out what that word meant, what I'm supposed to do, how to actually do it, how to make sure that my next death is peaceful and pleasant and calm. Now, 12 years later, I've finally figured out, and I feel safe and calm that if I need to die today, I know what to do. I know how it's gonna happen. And so since then, I've been on my own awakening journey for quite a while, and I've written a book in which I describe the easiest, in my understanding, the easiest and the simplest way to solve this whole mystery of life. And I'm teaching what I've discovered on my YouTube channel. And if you're interested, you can find the links in the description box below. And thank you for listening to my story, and bye. We all forward when the looks in her eyes, staring lost at the skyline. We all forward when the looks in her eyes.